Do you feel trapped by dental insurance? Too many restrictions, reducing your pay, and causing you to cry inside? Well, there are solutions to feeling less trapped by dental insurance. It starts with being able to explain to your patients in a caring, compassionate, and clear way how dental insurance really works. This is Paul, Dr. Nacho, and I have put together a 7-minute training video that you can watch totally for free that will help your dental practice, whether you are so fee-for-service, your patients pay a year ahead of time, or you're a network with 46 spoiled guac PPOs. Just text video to 215-543-6454. Just text video to 215-543-6454 to feel less trapped by dental insurance.
So before I introduce what JJ does, I just want to introduce my friend JJ, who is the owner of Teeth, And JJ, how has your, I want to say, whether it's relationship, knowledge, understanding of dental insurance involved as you become more involved with the dental profession? 20 years ago till now, tell us what do you think of dental insurance? Do you feel bad for us dentists? Tilly did a good job with her face here. I didn't, if you look there, she feels trapped. So talk about all the things you do, but I want to start with JJ. I have teeth. I get at least cleanings done,
I do.
hygiene done. Tell us what you think of dental insurance.
Yes. So I think the best way to sum up how I feel about dental insurance is I have opted out of employer-sponsored benefits related to dental insurance for the last 2 years because I don't value what dental insurance brings to me. And I prefer to go to dentists who allow me to have a relationship directly with them as opposed to having insurance in the middle. So that probably sums up my feelings about.
I love JJ, the person with teeth, because one of my favorite people, is in our organization is doing something similar with her family and their employer-sponsored dental insurance plan because they realized it's more of a hindrance than a help, both financially and with the restrictions of what dentists they can see. And they kind of realized what we pay into it, maybe we'll just get a membership club at an office. Well, you are ensconced in dentistry. Now we'll come off of Tilly and we'll start talking about what we're going to talk about today. Why dental partnerships fail, how to prevent it with the awesome JJ Trail, co-founder of Tuatera, a sponsor of what we do at Dentist Job Connect and Dental Nachos. So kind of just tell us a little bit about your why for wanting to put this content together.
Sure. So I think the easiest way to say it is I myself am in a successful business partnership, and I've seen how it can support not just the consulting business that I'm in, but also the practices that we serve. So when I see the benefits of partnership, it's really hard not to want to stand on the mountaintops and shout for everyone to hear how important it can be to get into the right partnership if that is something that supports your goals.
And I love that. Our goal at Dental Nachos and Dentist Job Connect help dentists smile more and cry less. And when you get it right, it definitely does that. When you don't get it right, it does the opposite. We'll also be launching some fun polls along the way. I'm so impressed by all these people joining us here live. There'll also be a recording of this for you, but I'm really impressed by how many people we have watching in with us live here, JJ. So I want to share that what we do at Dentist Job Connect, if you want to unlock more freedom, free time, and fewer hygiene checks, take a proactive approach to hiring an associate dentist. Text hire to 215-798-9897 to connect with our Dentist Job Connect team. Before we share how they can connect with you, JJ, I want to ask you, do you talk to dentists who are really glad that they hired an associate dentist so they get some freedom? Tell us about your experience with that, talking to your clients just about the associate process.
Absolutely. We'll get into this in more detail, but dentistry is changing and doing dentistry alone is getting harder by the minute. And we have seen tremendous success with our practices. We do, full disclosure, we do have practices who have hired from Dentist Job Connect posts and have been super thrilled with their results there. And again, just being able to do more of what they want to do and supporting others. We have a lot of dentists who are excited to mentor. One of the things I love about dentistry is the compassionate people that are in it. And they want to help others learn and grow. And maybe they were supported by a mentor and they want to do the same and pass it on, or maybe they didn't have that experience and they want to do different for the folks that are coming up through. So we have had tremendous success with practices bringing associates in.
I love that. I mean, I share, as someone was at my practice yesterday with my brother, we have assistants, we have hygienists, we have front desk team members, we have office managers, and it's not just about any team member, it's about the right team member, whether you're a dental office or the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. You want the right team member. They had a running back and they got a running back that was better for their team last year, which led them to the Super Bowl. So I encourage practice owners, don't be lazy, don't be reactive. Make sure that you are looking at enough candidates for the most important position in your practice. So tell us a little bit about you here, JJ. I want to share that people can connect with you by texting partnership to 215-798-9897, but take us through the menu of JJ here.
The menu of JJ. This is just I'm a complicated person, but I am, as I mentioned before, myself in a 50-50 partnership and a living example of how good that can be for my quality of life as well as the quality of my business. I am the COO and co-founder of Tuatera. Fun fact, if you know anything about me, I am a travel junkie. So I love new experiences. I love going new places, seeing new things, and doing that with friends and family that I love. So that is my.
Would you be able to give us some real world help? Is there any place you've traveled to that's maybe off the proverbial beaten path that you think people should check out? I mean, I've been to Paris, but any of your trips in the past few years that really stood out to you is really cool.
Yes, I would say Belize is a hidden treasure. So I'm a big beach fan. And I really felt like it was not your traditional touristy spot. It wasn't all of the lines and tickets and things. You really got to get into the jungle and get into the culture. And I really enjoyed, the beaches are beautiful too, but I really enjoyed Belize. I think it's kind of an off the beaten path, really cool experience.
Awesome. I like that one. So, and when people text partnership to 215-798-9897, what happens on your initial calls? Are you going over goals? Are you sharing what they're dentists, sometimes it's hard to get them off of step 0 to step 1. Sure. When they get on step 1, they move forward with momentum. So that's what we strive to do. So tell us what happens on that strategy call or that first call with you and your team.
Sure. So first thing we do is just talk through what the dentist's goals are. What are they trying to accomplish or achieve? What are they looking for from either a quality of life perspective or from a practice growth perspective? And that allows us to kind of help them decide if there is a journey or a path that makes sense for them. Sometimes that's something that we do. Sometimes it's not. So you see us in the forums and stuff. We love talking about dental marketing. We don't do dental marketing. We just know it supports practices. So you may get off a call with us and go talk to a marketing partner, and that's success. So whatever it is that your goals are for either quality of life or quality of your practice, we start there. And then if there's something we can help you with, we're happy to do that. But we always guarantee that in that time together, we will bring value to the call that you can take and implement something right away in your practice without having to buy a thing. Just come hang out with us and we can talk a little bit about what you're trying to do.
I love what you shared. And, studies show that dentists are some of the cheapest people on earth. And I can say that because I'm a dentist, right? And what is really cool is that you can do so many complimentary calls with companies that support dentists, and you will leave learning something you didn't know before, even if you don't buy something. And I just think that's an amazing win-win. We call it the JFO, just find out. And whether that's negotiating insurance, whether it's purchasing a CBCT, whether it's learning about partnerships, I have found that dental companies are very generous in giving their time to talk with you about something. And I mean, dentists ourselves, we often don't do this for our patients. It wouldn't make sense financially to give everybody free exams in our practice. But companies, when you can do something on Zoom and find out about what they're doing. So I encourage people watching this both live and on demand to do more complimentary consult calls. You'll learn things. So let's start with this, JJ. Sure. How do partnerships help doctors create a better work-life balance and avoid burnout?
Yeah, great question. So I think there's some obvious things, right? So you're able to divide and conquer from an administrative perspective. You can collaborate on difficult cases. You can maybe expand your procedure mix by partnering with someone that has different skills than you do. Maybe you can expand your office hours so that you can enhance your practice value proposition to your patients and also sometimes to your team. Being able to afford the latest and greatest technology. Like we can talk a little bit about how dentistry has changed in the last just even 10 years. Technology is expensive. So when you're the only one producing on it, that can make it hard to get the new technology. So being able to do all of those things are kind of maybe the more obvious, let's say. But I think being able to have someone that's in the trenches with you, have someone who is taking the risks with you, sharing in the risk and the reward with someone is really where I think partnerships really ramp up. Some of these things I just shared, you can get that with just an associate. And I use that in quotes because associates are the lifeblood of so many practices, and it is not a less than title. But there are so many more benefits, I think, that you can see when you actually have an owner in that associate moving to an owner perspective. And that's where we really see things like being comfortable making the investment to expand the practice, let's say. So let's say you're in 6 ops and you want to go to 8. Doing that with a partner where you know they're going to stay, they're not going to give you, the 60-day notice and up and leave, and then you're scrambling to hire someone new. Being able to make those investments in technology, bringing in new skills, bringing in new team members, all of those things being shared with a partner can really help enhance your practice, and then also keep your stress down. We talk about crying less a lot. You cry less when you have someone that's there with you, kind of checking you on your decisions. Does this make sense? Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing it in the right order? Having that partner there to do that with you makes life better. And so you can go on vacation and not worry about the practice. Your team has more than one person that they can talk to and know that they can get a final answer from, instead of having to kind of, wait on mom to get back to ask. So all of those things make for a really high quality of life, as well as a really balanced practice.
I think those are all great points. And, my own father, who I worked with for 11 years before he passed away, I'm only a dentist because he had a partner. As a child, it was very awesome to me that we would go on vacation. His partner would cover the practice. His partner would go on vacation. And it doesn't mean that you can't go on vacation if you're a solo dentist. Of course, it doesn't mean it, but it just avoiding burnout, taking time off from the office. And both of them had a very healthy attitude towards, we need time off from this job, because we go back to Tilly. I always say dental hours, chairside, are dog year hours. I've been a dentist and I've done this thing. And the dentist thing is like 3 times the energy per hour, the effort energy, and you need breaks. So I love how you've positioned that there, that it gives you the ability not only to have work-life balance, but also avoid burnouts. Now, dentists love what can go wrong. It's kind of our whole thing. So tell us, what are some of the common mistakes dentists make when they try to bring in a partner?
So I will actually start with something you said a few minutes ago, which was about these complimentary calls that a lot of vendors are willing to have. And what I hear so often is, I wish I had called you 2 years ago. Start sooner than you think, figuring out what journey is right for you in your practice ownership. Or if you're an associate, what do you want your journey to look like throughout your dentisting career? Because it does take time. So often what we see with partnerships is people are trying to do something very quickly because they wrote in an associate agreement 2 years ago that in 2 years we will discuss partnership. And they turn around and they go, 2 years is October 1st and it's June and I haven't done anything and I don't know what to do next. And then they're panicking, trying to get something done. And I think that can lead to getting into something too quickly. The partners are not ready, the practice is not ready, and that can lead to a challenge. So I think that's number one common mistake: not taking the time, not realizing it's a journey, and trying to do it too quickly because you're worried you're going to maybe lose the associate. It wasn't malintended that you didn't go through things more quickly or sooner. You just didn't think about it because in your mind, I had 2 years and all of a sudden the 2 years is here. So I think that's probably the number one thing. Misunderstanding what each of the partners wants to achieve. So talking through, is a partner looking for a transition plan, or are they looking for a long-term partner? Neither of those things are wrong, but if someone thinks that it's one and the other thinks it's the other, you can have missed expectations, and in any relationship that can lead to dissatisfaction. We hear a lot too that my associate isn't already acting like an owner, so why would I approach them about ownership? But that's confusing because you're paying them on production. So if you're paying them to produce and then they're not doing something else, that can be a misalignment and confusion. So just understanding what each person wants to achieve and being clear about that from the start. And I could go on and on. The last one I'll say.
I love this.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So last one is just starting with the legal tax structure and then trying to back into the relationship, versus starting with the relationship, defining what each person is looking for, and then settling your tax and legal structure around that. Sometimes we'll go back to Tilly. Sometimes it's the tail wagging the dog, where we call our tax person and say, how can we save the most taxes? And they say, this is the structure that you need. And then we get into a relationship with someone and we're trying to force this structure that maybe doesn't work for them. So that's probably the other thing too, is just making sure we are relationship first when it comes to partnerships, and then we structure tax and legal around it.
I think you've shared gold. We'll pull out some must-dos from this, some things I'll kind of add to this as someone who owns a dental practice. It's very unreasonable to expect your associate to act like an owner any more than it is expect your brother or sister to act like a child, right? Aunts and uncles are there to keep your children safe, have fun with them, and guide them. That's what associate dentists are there to do. Keep the practice safe, guide them, and have as much fun as possible, in my world, as much dental fun. And they are not there to order paper towels, and they are not there to discipline employees, because that is the goal of the owner. If my sister, amazing sister, said, come over and help my daughter with her homework, I'll say, no, thanks. I want the taking to the pool or going to the Phillies game job, right?
That's right.
Homework is your thing. So I want to share that it's very unreasonable to expect your associate to act like a partner. What is reasonable, though, is to expect your associate to exhibit professional traits that would be good in a partner, like showing up on time, like writing their notes. So those are things that you would, behaviors that are professional in your associate dentist, you need to say. And also, same goes for the associate looking at the owner. If the owner never shows up on time for the first patient and you're a show up on timer, those things don't change in people. So I wanted to add that into a discussion along with what you did. Really good advice to make sure you have the proper legal framework in place.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now what kind of plan. I also want to share, for those of you who are live and more people are joining, which is awesome, please feel free to ask questions in the chat to our expert, JJ. You're the most important people here. We have plenty of questions for her, but I'll be glad to add your questions in. But what kind of planning or mentorship needs to happen before a junior doctor buys in?
Yeah. So one of the things we hear a lot is people think, oh, if I'm getting a partner, I need to make them a partner on day one. And that sounds crazy. And that is crazy. That would be just as crazy as getting engaged on day one. We need to get to know each other. We need to make sure we're compatible, not just clinically, but in a lot of other ways. So what we say is, first, recognizing that mentorship is not leverage. It is absolutely appropriate that you are bringing in a doctor because you have more patients than you can see. It is not appropriate to think, oh, I can just stick them on the marketing call and they can do that for me now, because it's not leverage. You're intending to help them learn. So for marketing, for example, and there's ways to do this with associates. The first thing is we pay them for this administrative time, but we can have associates join us on these calls and start learning about how to manage a practice. But we talk about the call before we get on it. We say, hey, here's our goals for our marketing company. Here's how we decide whether or not we're meeting our goals with them. Here's who the team is. Here's how long we've been with them. Here's what we expect to get. And here's why we have this meeting. And then we have the meeting. And then after the meeting, we go, hey, JJ, what'd you think about that? Did we meet these goals? How's, what do you think about the next conversation we're going to have? You have those three pieces together, as opposed to just thinking I can get off this call and this associate can take it for me. So really thinking about it as mentorship, not leverage. And then we like the 70-20-10 model for mentorship. Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar. I'm looking forward to learning.
Perfect. So 70-20-10 is about 70% of not just management, clinical mentorship in general, mentorship will happen on the job training. So that is dropping into the operatory. That is, hey, I'm about to do this procedure. Come watch me do that. That's, hey, doc, can you come take a look at this? So that's on the job training. 20% of that should be informal interaction, but still education. So for example, we had a doctor yesterday that was talking on Dentist Job Connect on the Facebook forum about how they would have Friday lunches with their mentor, and they would sit down and actually go through cases, have lunch. It was informal, but it was intentional. Sit down and go through those things. That's about 20% of the learnings. And then 10% is investing in formal CE and education. So going to conferences, going to courses, intentionally saying, hey, our goal is to do XYZ in this specialty or in this area, or offer this procedure. Here's how we're going to work through you getting up to speed to do that. So 70% on the job, 20% of that informal but intentional education, and then 10% classroom, conferences, et cetera, CE. So kind of that framework.
I love that. I was at the office yesterday, and my brother, who runs all this with the associates, we have dentist debriefs from 1 to 2. There's often lunch there, and someone's on Zoom and someone's there, and they go over alignment on treatment philosophy. Patients often act like the 5-year-old who said, my mom said I didn't have to clean my room. And I'm like, I feel like that's not something your mom would say, but she's not here. So sometimes these patients, sometimes it's done with true confusion. Sometimes it's try to get out of position. The last associate said, I never needed a crown. And there's 5 crowns in their mouth. Okay. I've never had that thing called a crown in my mouth. These are 5 in your mouth. So to get aligned, you need this. And people don't live inside of your head. So it's so key that you invest that time in doing that. And through these experiences, you find out if you have someone who's a good fit to be a partner or not. I want to share before we go to this next question, and it might be something you reinforce later, but I want to make sure. Talk to me about age difference. I'm 47, my brother's 42. We're 5 years apart. I do a lot with transitions and associates, and some very well-meaning 62-year-old dentist is going to say, I'm going to offer partnership to my 28-year-old associate, not even asking them first if they want partnership. Just walk us through some of the, if you're outside of a certain age range with your potential partner, how that could cause, I'll add to cause some problems, but you go first.
Sure. Yeah. So that's a great question. It's something that I think is, again, really reflective of modern dentistry as opposed to what we saw in generations past, where it was very common for a 62-year-old dentist to offer partnership to a 28-year-old. But what they meant by that was transition plan. They meant, I want to practice 5 or 7 more years. I need to get someone in here. And they thought partnership was the vehicle for that. Now, perhaps they are legally or taxed as a partnership. That may be true. But I think when you think of the word partner, you think of equal. And you're never going to be equal to a dentist that's been in the practice for 40 years. There's just never going to be that equality there. There's going to be a home field advantage you can't overcome. So for us, in a partnership, we would say it's more about how long you have left to practice and how many years experience. So if you have 10 or more years left of clinical practice, and you are within 15 years of experience of the other doctor, then it's appropriate to work through a partnership. If not, then it's more appropriate to work through a transition. That does not mean you have to retire tomorrow. Our transition plans are typically 5 to 7 years. That allows you to maintain the value of the practice. That allows you to maintain continuity in your team. It allows you to have the best patient experiences. So it doesn't have to mean that you're going to be going, to the golf course tomorrow, but it's intentional about how long you plan on practicing and whether or not there ever will not be that home field advantage for the incumbent doctor. So that's really the guidelines that we use: 10 plus years in practice together and 15 years or less in experience gap. Because again, we used to say age, but we have a lot of folks now who dentistry is their second career. So they're coming into dentistry and they've did something else for a few years. They went back to dental school. So they may be older, but only have 1 or 2 years of experience. So they may be closer in age, but a further experience gap. So that's what we like.
I love what you've shared. And I think, dentists tend to be fairly dramatic, and deal breakers tend to be that's a negative connotation, right? What's a deal breaker? But non-starter is a more positive way to put it. So I think it's good to learn about non-starters, because someone met me today, JJ, and said, I'd like to be your friend, but on Saturdays, I would like us to go hiking. I go, that's a non-starter for our friendship. I don't hike. As Jim Gaffigan says, I'm an indoorsy person. So hiking is our friendship activity. It is a non-starter, okay? And a non-starter is likely going to be 30 years of age difference. And the reason why it's a non-starter for the associates on here, you will have the task of finding a new partner when your older partner retires. And that is a very complex thing to do from the outside. I helped someone with this locally, and I'm very proud of it. They had a 75-year-old, a 55-year-old. 75-year-old wanted to be done, but had to find a new him. It was not easy to do based on, like you said, the clinical experience. I found them that person as a headhunter. I'm very proud to have done so. But it was very difficult to do that because the 55-year-old has to now work with them. This person was, I think, in her 30s, had clinical experience. So that's a really good point. Now, we'll do a couple more questions here, JJ, or at least one more here.
Sure.
What do doctors need to know about involving attorneys and advisors in the process?
Great question. So this is important from a timing perspective. So you are going to need to get an attorney and you're going to get a CPA involved in this process. Hands down. These are legal agreements. These are tax structures that has to happen. The issue is timing. So what we would say is if you have a trusted advisor that you have worked with, that you have a relationship with, that understands you and your goals, that's either a CPA or an attorney, before there is a person that you've contemplated. So you're a solo owner now, you're getting ready to go to market two, want to hire an associate that could be a partner. It's great to talk to them about the framework of what you're thinking about. If the relationship exists, so this is relationships before our paperwork, right? If you don't yet have a relationship with an attorney or a CPA, then you can get that in place after you create the relationship and the goals and the experience with the person that you're going to consider partnership with. So a couple things here. Has to be a dental specific attorney. You will hear us. We try really hard to make sure you can use whatever advisors and CPAs and CFPs and all those things, as many opportunities as we can. In this case, this does have to be a dental specific attorney. There are things that need to be in the contract that are dental specific. But we really put attorneys in bad places with partnerships when we get them involved too soon. So when we bring an attorney in and we don't tell them what our objectives are, it's really hard for them to write a document that supports that. So if you don't show them that you're different and you've thought through this and you've looked at what you want this to be, then they're just going to give you the advice that protects you in the worst of circumstances. Now, if you're covering all potential downsides, you're also missing out on a lot of upside. It's like putting cash under your mattress. But the attorneys, if you show up to them and they show you that you haven't thought about getting into something, they're probably worried you haven't thought about getting out of it, and they're going to protect you. So getting them too prematurely involved can be putting them in a really hard place. So get an agreement in principle in place first, unless again, you already have a relationship with an attorney. Get that agreement in principle with your partner of here's what we're trying to do, here's what we want to achieve, here's how we plan to do that together. And then you can take that to an attorney and they can paper that for you.
I think it's so key, because if you don't give the attorney direction, it's like not giving someone direction on how to build your house. And everyone is there with that. Now, our bonus question on you is tell us about a time a dentist faced a personal crisis, and being in a partnership helped them navigate that personal crisis.
Sure. So I'll go. Unfortunately, if you've heard some of my longer seminars and things, we have a ton of personal experience with crisis inside of practices that have had a lot of different outcomes. One, for a partnership group, we had one of the partners. They were in a purpose-driven partnership, which means they were practicing together for 10 or more years. They were within 15 years of experience of each other. And one of the doctors faced a devastating medical diagnosis that required long-term treatment. She was able to step out of the practice and immediately focus on her health, while the doctor the partner doctor who was there was able to seamlessly transition into all of the administrative, management, leadership work that needed to be done in the practice to keep it humming. The team didn't worry about losing their jobs. They were able to get clinical support from another dentist, but all of the administrative management support, the doctor who was getting treatment did not have to step back into that. And we've seen so many times, even with amazing associates, the associates don't have the context. They don't have the contact information. They can't run payroll for you. They've never done that. So in this case, the doctor was able to just focus on her treatment plan, was able to come back into the practice and pick up and continue to grow with her partner. And so she was able to focus. The practice did not suffer, and they were able to just get support clinically and move on. So that was a huge opportunity for them.
I think that's, what's really, I've coined this term CBITA, which is stress building inside towards dentist annoyance.
I love it.
Shirts made up. And I think in a poignant way, there are things that don't show up on your P&L that really matter. And that story doesn't show up on a P&L for that practice owner. I know it does by the practice not dissolving, but the ability to deal with a medical crisis with your family and have the support of a licensed dentist. There are amazing things about dentistry, and there are aggravating things. And I am the owner of two companies I thought up in my head, JJ. And if I can't come to work because I want to go practice basketball, the whole company can work without me. And if you're a solo dentist and you can't come to work for a fun thing or an effed up thing or a frustrating thing, the practice cannot run. And that vulnerability is massive to what we do. So I want to thank you for sharing, JJ. I want people can text partnership to 215-798-9897. I'm also sharing in the chat if people would like to do a complimentary call with you, but you can kind of have the last 60 seconds. Is there anything you'd like to share that I missed? Anything you'd like to reinforce with our audience before we wrap up?
Yeah, I think, we mentioned it during this conversation. This really is a journey. And this is something where you start with what your goals are. We'll hear sometimes in the forums where people are like, oh, I would be a terrible partner for all these reasons. That's true for you. But if you are someone who's like, I really like this concept and I like this idea, know that it takes time. It is not too soon to start talking about this. And we would be more than happy to jump on the phone with you, get some ideas out there. It's very common that we talk to someone and it's not 18, 24 months until they're ready to do something, but they at least have information to be thinking about. And you're on the, we're recording this in the summertime, you're on the beach, you're thinking about, what it might look like for you to have a quality of life or quality of your practice that's improved. Partnerships may be an avenue for you. So we'd love to talk to anyone who wants to go learn about that journey.
Well, thank you for being so generous with your knowledge, supporting us as a sponsor. It means so much. All of you watching in, appreciate you being here today. Thanks so much, JJ.
Thanks, Paul.